So what we're going to talk about today is exporting your videos. Now, what I'm going to do, the method by which we're going to export our videos, or the settings that we're going to use, are what basically you use for YouTube, okay? Exporting videos, quality, compression, all those things, very complicated. Things called codecs, which are compression algorithms that they use for different videos. There's a ton of them out there, MPEG-2, MPEG-4, H.264, H.263, H.265. I could go on. Not going to do that, but I'm just going to teach you the most widely used one right now, which is H.264, which is pretty much the best way to go to YouTube. It's also what they use for Blu-ray discs, so it's very high quality. The compression system is awesome. They're now on H.265, which is a new generation of it, but H.264 is still used more than just about anything else. So that's what we're going to go for. So here's how you export. The first thing to realize is that using Adobe Premiere, you can make one really big basic mistake, and that is you can accidentally, a lot of times, export just an individual clip. So if you go to your project tab in the assembly, and let's say you have a whole list of clips, and and one of those is selected like this. If that's selected and you go to export, sometimes it will export that clip. Which we don't want it to re-export that clip. We want the whole sequence. We want the movie that you have built, or the video that you have built. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to find your sequence. Now, depending upon what you have, you may have everything kind of listed this way, and you may have all your video clips here, and it may look like a gigantic mess. The thing to look for is this clip here has this little symbol in the bottom of it that looks like a series of tracks, just like this down here. I always like to go in the list view, and then it's usually right here, and it's got that same little symbol with tracks on it. And sometimes when you drag a clip in, Adobe Premiere will name your sequence the same name as the first clip you dragged in. So your sequence could be named MVI 8893, which was the first clip that I dragged in here. And so sometimes you can also confuse your sequence for one of the clips. So the thing to look for there is that little track symbol that you've got there. That's going to tell you what your sequence is. If your sequence is named the same as your first movie clip that you dragged into the timeline to start, then you should definitely right-click on it and rename your clip to PSA or commercial, or whatever you want to give the title, okay, of your project. Now, once you've done that, the rest is actually pretty simple until we get the settings. You're just going to right-click on the sequence. You're going to go all the way to the bottom where it says Export Media. You're going to select that, and it's going to come up with this window. You can scrub through your project if you want. I really recommend you do that because you want to make sure that all your clips are there, your titles are showing up, everything's showing up. So I will usually scrub through it really fast, just make sure everything's there. It is fantastic. Then you're going to go over here, and I do believe, now I've done this before, so I do believe that the default is AVI under the format. This is where we need to change things. So what you do is you click on the format, and you're going to go H.264. Don't select the Blu-ray quality, because we're going to be doing YouTube, which is a little bit, lower quality than Blu-ray. It's going to save us some space, and it's pretty darn good nonetheless. So you're just going to click H.264. And then right here under the preset, you want to make sure it says Match Source High Bitrate. And you could click on that, and you can see that there's a ton of options. This is not even close to all the different options. It's not even showing everything. But that's what you want to do. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the output name, and you're going to click. Now this is where I wish Adobe Premiere was a little different here. This is also the location. It doesn't say that, but this is also setting your location. So you're going to click, and right now the location will default to the folder that you have all your clips in your project in. That's actually really good. You can do this two ways. You can export to the hard drive first, and then you can copy it into the hand-in folder, or you can just export straight to the hand-in folder, which I think is better because it will give you a backup immediately, because the server has automatic backups. To do that, you just click on this PC, make this a little bit bigger, go to Media Shared, Project Hand-in Folder, then my name, Weisbrod, then Semester 2, Digital Filmmaking is period 2, so it's right there. Get into your folder. You'll notice that everybody has a folder by last name. Get into your folder. Then under the file name, I want you to keep it, you can keep it PSA or whatever, and then I want you to put your last name in the file. That helps me greatly when I'm doing grading and everything like that. It also helps if you accidentally put things into the wrong folder or so on and so forth, okay? So that's good. Once you've got that set up, you hit save. And now we're just going to do a couple of small changes to the presets here. So right here you have a whole series of tabs: effects, video, audio, multiplexer, captions, and publish. We're only going to be concerned about the video and the audio really quickly, and actually we're only going to be concerned about the video because the audio is set the way we want it. Video is match source. So right now it's going to set the width and the height to the same as the source video that you used. So the camera that I was shooting my demos with for you guys is actually only a 720. It's an old Canon DSLR, and it only records digital video, showing my age here, records the video in 720. It's not a full 1080p. Most of you will be 1080p, okay? Once you've got that, this is all grayed out because match source is selected. But down here, this is where we can change some things. The bitrate settings. Variable bitrate, 1 pass. What we want to do, oops, I missed one. First off, the first thing we want to do is we always want to check render at maximum depth. That's going to take a little longer to make our movie, but that's okay. The quality will be much better. Then here under variable bitrate 1 pass, we want to change that to a 2 pass. What that means is it's going to go through the video twice. The first time it goes through and it looks for areas, it goes really fast the first time, and it looks for areas where it needs to do a higher bitrate, essentially where it needs to encode the video at a little bit of a better quality for things like motion or more colors or whatever. So you always want to set a 2 pass. It takes twice as long, but it's worth it usually. And these computers are pretty fast, so twice as long means 5 minutes instead of 2, okay? But it's worth it. The next thing we want to do is we want to take our bitrate, and I actually like to pump it up a little bit. Higher bitrate equals a higher quality, theoretically. You can go beyond the bitrate of the source material, in which case after that you're really just wasting space. You're not actually changing the quality anymore, because you can never get higher quality than your original material, right? It's, you know, like taking wood and trying to turn it into gold. It's not going to happen. You can never get anything better than what you started with. So what I like to do for YouTube is I set it at about 20 and 18. And that may actually be a little higher than the source footage, but that's pretty close. And it won't make that much of a difference in my file size at the end, but that extra bit rate, that helps a little bit, okay? Then finally, down here, use maximum render quality. I will always check that as well so that the output of the file is at the best quality that it can be at. Now, you have three choices really. You can cancel, you can hit export, or you can hit Q. If you hit Q, what it will do is it will open up a secondary program called Adobe Media Encoder, which is a fantastic application. And what that will then do is you can then add multiple projects to encode at the same time, just hit play, and then it starts. There's no need for that. Maybe I'll do a demo on how to use Adobe Media Encoder a little bit later in the future. But for now, what we really want to do is we just want to hit export. The other thing is, this will not allow you to continue working in Adobe Premiere. But if you're actually done your project, what do you need to do, right? Maybe work on your second project, but we're not there yet. So that is a possibility. But if you're working while it's exporting, I always don't like doing that because depending upon the computer, it can crash, it'll go a lot slower. So I generally find that if I'm just exporting one project and one project only, I just hit the export button and I let it do its thing, and I don't touch the computer, I don't get on the internet, I don't open up another application, because guess what? That just is asking for it to go A, slower, which it will, and B, sometimes, although this is very, very rare, crash. And then you got to start the whole process all over again. So I'll just hit export, and then it's just going to sit here. It's going to go through my passes. So look how fast it's going. I mean, yeah, this is this is 34 second, okay? And it's half the resolution that most of you will be working at, because most of you are at 1080p. But, I mean, really, it's pretty quick, okay? These are pretty fast computers. So once it's done with the first pass, it'll move on to the second pass, and you should be good to go. Now, let me say one last thing. When you hand in an English paper, you've typed it, you've printed it out, what's the smart thing to do before you plop it on the teacher's desk? Read over it again. Yeah. I had a fellow student of mine in my master's classes, my master's degree. She accidentally printed 6 or 7 copies of the first page only of one of her papers. She stapled it, she handed it to the professor, and didn't read through it. That's an easy mistake to see if you actually go through the process of reading your paper, right? The funny thing is, we learned that that professor only ever read the first page of our papers because he gave her an A+ and marked up the first page and didn't do anything else in the second or third or fourth pages. And she only recognized it when she started reading through it when she got it back. Kind of funny. Anyway, so the reason why I bring that up, it's the same here. Sometimes things happen. Now, it's very rare, but sometimes things happen. So the first thing you should do is open up the media shared, find the project hand folder, go in, find the movie that you just exported, double click on it, and watch it, okay? So that you know that everything turned out the way you want it to. Sometimes a title might not show up, and sometimes it's your fault and sometimes it's the computer's fault. But either way, you should treat this just like an English paper. You're turning this in for a grade. Double check it, for Pete's sakes, okay? It helps me and it helps you. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay, because that's, I think, something that I probably shouldn't even have to say, but guess what? I'm going to say it anyway. Watch the whole movie, make sure it's what you want, and then you are ready to quit out of Adobe Premiere. Give it one last save, which is always nice to do, and then you can quit and be done. Does that make sense as far as exporting is concerned? Cool. I'm going to do a screenshot of the settings, and I will post that on my blog so that you guys have that and you can use that, and I'll do that right now. I want you to export these today if you get the chance.